meeting of the West Newbury Board of Selectmen. It's 7:08, April 28th. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. Meeting is accessible by remote participation. Instructions are to call go to meeting. The access code, I don't think you could have it if I'll read it out. He couldn't hear it if you had access, but 368-836-901. I'd like to thank everybody that helped with the roadside cleanup. I actually noticed in the areas that were really improved. It's great. Anything we can do to make the town look better, and I'd like to thank perhaps for initiating this process several years ago. It really helps the town, and thanks especially to her.
I would agree with that, and I would actually like to, before next year, I'd like to make this a town type of thing, so we don't have to have Barbara Hack initiate it. Maybe we can call it the Barbara Hack Cleanup Day or Barbara Hack Earth Day Cleanup Day, but I think this needs to start being a town thing rather than a Barbara Hack thing. And I think it's kind of a quasi type of thing at this point, but I think we need to, by next year, make it a town thing going forward.
Yes, and I think it's nice to have her name associated with it, but she doesn't need to do any work related to it. Yeah.
Correct.
So that people know what's going on related to the obviously changes with voting, the town meeting, changes in things related to the COVID-19 situation, changes related to so that people are informed related to the new school and construction, and related to the possible 40B situation. Subscribe to the www.wnewbury.org and subscribe to stay informed on things. It's an easy way. Okay. We have our first order of business is so that people know what do we know about the construction on the Rocks Village Bridge, how long that's going to go on, or someone close in on that?
It's until through May 1st. One lane on the bridge will be closed and there will be alternate traffic. Saturday, May 2nd through Sunday, May 17th, both of the lanes on the bridge will remain open as prep work will be performed on the bridge. May 18th through Wednesday, June 3rd. The bridge will be closed to car traffic and all traffic will be detoured. So the key date is May 18th to June 3rd. The bridge will totally be closed. Starting on Monday, which has already happened, there will be one lane traffic, and that will be going back and forth. So it's the May 18th to June 3rd is the important date.
Do we know these are really hard dates? Is this absolutely in stone, or are they flexible? I don't know.
Well, this is from Mass DOT. So,
right.
As of April 24th.
Weather changes things and everything else. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we should, go by what the Mass DOT gave us on April 24th. And if we have any changes, hopefully they will contact us, and then we'll put them on our website.
I think these dates are solid, Archie. When they had closed it last summer, it was for a 3D scanning that was very weather dependent. If there was wind, it would throw it off. So as you recall, that was a little squirrely, but I think this is pretty solid.
Okay. Our first order of business, we have a request to, for the selectmen for the town to declare the first week in May as Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. Do we proclamation, or what are the other selectmen say about this?
I would be in total agreement with the proposal, but I'm just not sure how we would go forward.
I mean, we could certainly acknowledge that. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing anything active beyond acknowledging it.
I think
Yeah.
all I would suggest is if the board makes this proclamation that week, Jenny and I would hope to get this information out into circulation. I think it's a very positive, very helpful information in the proclamation. So I think that's what we would do, is that week, we would put an emphasis on that in some of our public communications.
Perfect.
I would make a
I'd
motion
move.
that
Yeah,
the Board of Selectmen of the town of West Newbury do hereby proclaim May 3rd through the 9th, 2020 as Children's Mental Health Awareness Week.
Second, Kemper.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Kemper.
Hi, Parker.
Our next item is kind of a catch-all item. A lot going on, but related to COVID-19. So, first off, Mike McCarron, do you have any recent legislation that you think we should mention to residents related to this?
Not really any that would affect the town so much. Obviously, there's a new statute that prevents evictions and foreclosures during this period. But obviously the town's not going to be, involved in that. So the only other thing I would say is that the governor did declare today that he was extending the stay-at-home orders until May 18th. So they're originally scheduled to end on May 4th, and they've been extended another 2 weeks.
Correct.
Ooh.
So everything continues, practice social distancing. I would make a recommendation that in all public spaces, the post office, the food, wherever, that in the town of West Newbury, people should be wearing masks in public spaces like that. We don't have any large areas. All of our spaces are kind of small. So I think that for that reason, it wouldn't be a bad idea that in public spaces indoors, people should be wearing masks. That would be my recommendation. I don't know. That's what my feeling is.
Paul, are you on this call? Paul, Board of Health, are you on this call?
Yes.
Good, great.
What would be your recommendation?
I would say it's a recommendation at this point. We've been working with the local businesses to try to, get more of the residents to comply. But again, it's enforcement is a problem regards to making it an order or a full requirement. But I definitely agree with Archie. It should be recommended for all residents to wear face coverings. But again, it's just a recommendation, and enforcement is the problem. That's what we've been trying to work out in the last couple of weeks. But I think it's going good for most of the people I've seen around town, even when they're walking down the street, are wearing face coverings, as well as in the food.
Do we have
those are pizza shops.
Do we have some face masks that we could give to some local people who could, for people who are coming in that might not have them, they could give it to them, or do we not have? We don't want to start that.
We don't want to start it too much, but I have given all the businesses some surgical masks for any customers that may not have them. But again, they are limited supply, so if we do give them out to customers, then they need to reuse those the next time they're in that facility and not just throw them away. But there is a lot of individuals.
So it sounds like you already did that.
I have done some, yes. If the businesses, if anyone is looking for some, I can give up some more. But obviously we're going to need what we have in stock for moving down the line for town meeting and elections and all that, because those are big avenues that we're going to have to supply some face coverings for those avenues. So again, there is quite a few people in town that are making these face coverings, and it doesn't have to be elaborate. It could just be a bandana or there's a lot of ingenious people out there making face coverings. So if anyone's listening that is in need of one, by all means, give me an email or give me a call, and I'll be happy to set you up.
So I'm kind of curious, some other communities, like Newburyport being a case in point, mandated that people wear face coverings going into stores, and, in certain public venues. And is that anything we want to consider? And do we even have the authority to do that?
Again, the Board of Health has discussed that, and at this point, I did talk to the three, main businesses in town and talk to them about the idea. And they wanted to try to do it on their own without, making an order from the Board of Health. And again, the enforcement is if you put an order, if you don't enforce it, then you look like a fool because you didn't enforce it. So you got to follow through with these things when you put it on an order. So I did talk to 3 businesses. They recommended also. I did provide them with face coverings. I did provide some local, seamstresses in town to provide all those 3 businesses with cloth face coverings so they can launder in them and all that. That was done a couple weeks ago. But again, I'll back up what Archie says. Everyone in the community is recommended that they wear face coverings. Social distancing, face coverings. This virus is real. It's out there. Some people get sick and no problems, and other people are sick and deathly ill. So, some people don't really believe it's out there, but it's out there. Until people have a loved one or a friend that's really sick, they're not going to really take it serious. So I encourage everyone to take it serious. The town's doing a great job. Our numbers are low. We just got to maintain, keep the foot on the pedal and maintain social distancing and, keep on going in the direction we're headed.
As someone that wears a mask 10 hours a day for the last 40 years, it's not a big deal. Just get used to it. Just do it.
Yeah, and I think that we have some local businesses that already have put signs up that are encouraging people to do it going in. If I'm not
Correct.
mistaken. Okay. So I guess that could be like some type of proclamation that we would, what did you say, Archie?
All we can do is a recommendation, but I would say, the Board of Selectmen strongly recommend that everyone wears facial covering indoors in any public spaces. That's what I would say.
Okay, I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Paul, anything else that you would like to add?
What was that?
One thing.
Would you like to add anything else, Paul, that while we're on this topic?
No, I think that's a great recommendation. Obviously, you guys are aware that I put out the COVID-19 update number 6. Reiterating that the virus is still within the community. It's in the surrounding communities. We're not sure if we've seen the peak yet. So we got to maintain the social distancing, everything that we've been doing. And unfortunately, it's going to be some time before we can back off the pedal a little bit. Just the way this virus is. Like I said, it's people who are asymptomatic, carrying the virus and, giving it out and no symptoms. And there's other people who are definitely.
What's going on there?
Got a virus.
So no, I think what you guys just said is great, and I'll continue. The Board of Health will continue to work with the businesses in the community, and we'll keep on moving forward.
Thank you, Paul, for all you've been doing.
Thanks, Paul. And thank you for getting. Thank you, Paul, for getting those masks to the seniors that we recognized wanted them delivering the food today. Thank you very much.
All right. If you need any more, just let me know.
Yep. Under this is, what about our Memorial Day parade? Do we need to discuss this at this time, or maybe, what do we, something like that?
I would think
Are you looking at?
in the consideration that the governor has put off things, any kind of opening until May 18th, the idea of a community gathering of something that's, it's kind of necessary, but not necessary. My feeling is that we're going to have to cancel that in any fashion for this year.
I think that's realistic, Archie, too. At this point, there's not going to be a significant letting up on things by the end of May.
And if we start planning something, it would be for naught if all of a sudden the governor says, let's do this until June. The other states have done it until through June. So I would agree. Maybe we can do some type of Zoom thing or some type of readings or something like that. But the actual parade, I think we need to postpone until next year.
That would be an interesting idea, Glenn, to have some kind of, a reading, like you say, on a format like that.
Mm-hmm. Something we could have a short type of thing to honor our fallen veterans, and the people could chime in, or not chime in. I don't mean to make it seem trivial, but log into a Zoom. I don't know. We'll work on it, but I would agree with you guys. So I'd make a motion that we would postpone the Memorial Day parade this year until next year.
Second. All in favor?
Aye, Kemper.
Aye.
I want to, but yes, aye.
Archie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not asking for a decision tonight, but I feel pretty confident that with the early voting and the spacing in the annex, that we can run the election as scheduled on June 3rd. But town meeting might be more problematic. So I'd suggest, not for tonight, but maybe at the next agenda, we look at whether or not where we stand on whether or not we might have to postpone town meeting again. So something for future agenda.
I agree with that. And there were the conference call I listened to on Thursday with DLS. Some people had like questions about, how can we have a town meeting, a virtual one, or my thinking is, can we do an outdoor one? But all of no one actually has tried any of these things, and so I think maybe we can get a little help from the Commonwealth on ideas about this before we make any decisions. But I agree. It's going to be hard to get a bunch of people in a small room for a significant amount of time by June 1st. I'm concerned about it too.
Yeah. Somebody asked me this week about the possibility of a virtual meeting, and we conversed by email a little bit, and I don't know how we would actually do that, because I don't know how, in a virtual meeting, I don't know how you would take a vote. I don't know how you would confirm that.
How do we know who they are? Yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, so I
All right,
don't.
so again, we have
Future agenda.
the future agenda, obviously, but just highlighting it. Well, I'll have the process ready for you for the next agenda.
Thank
Can I
you.
just throw a suggestion?
And Mike, Mike, why don't you, just so that anyone that's listening now, information is always good, explain to people how that basically anyone can get is for this, well, are they going to be able to get an absentee ballot for the
Right.
municipal election? Yeah.
Right. For any reason, people can request an absentee / early voting ballot for the town election, which is scheduled for June 3rd. All you have to do is you can download or print off the application form, which is on the town clerk's website, on the town website. There's also available on the Secretary of the Commonwealth's website. And then you can either drop that off, mail it to me, drop it off at the post office. I mean, the tax payment box in the front vestibule, or even email to me, just as long as you have a signature. It's got to have to have a signature. And then I will mail you a ballot, and then that ballot must be returned by the election. And it can be returned by mail, it could be dropped off, or it could be, given at the, at the poll. So,
Mike, the town, the election is an article on the town meeting warrant, correct?
Mhm. Correct.
So the town meeting has to be open.
It's Article 1. And
Yeah.
the town
So
warrant
Have to be open.
basically specifies when that will happen. If you read the preamble to the warrant, it says, and except, that you will meet at this date, except for Article 1, which you'll meet at the town annex from 7 to 8 on June 3rd. So, yeah, you don't have to officially open it on that. It's part of the warrant, the original warrant.
That's a good question, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So between now and the next meeting, maybe it'd be good just to give some thought as to, well, maybe other people wouldn't agree that it's not possible to have an outdoor meeting, but if you think it's possible to have an outdoor meeting as an option, maybe we should all be thinking about possible venues.
We have, they have the football field. That would be one. That's where they hold the graduations, as long as we have good weather.
When are they going to be starting to store stuff there for the construction process?
That I don't know.
Everyone could have a kayak on the mill pond.
I don't know. I mean, for the bicentennial, they put up a big stage. There were a lot of people there, and there's a lot of space for there. So that's another possibility. Pipe safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so
All
we'll
right,
get on
something
the
to think of.
agenda. Yep.
Okay. Any other further comments on this area? I think we're good. Everyone stay safe. Please pay attention to the rules. We're getting through this. Let's not blow it now, basically. Okay, next item is appointment of the Board of Fire Engineers, and this is something that has to be done in the month of April. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so anyone wants to talk? I'm just going through my papers, getting to the next item. Anyone else has any comments? Go ahead. Okay.
It's page 28 of your packet, Archie.
28, okay.
Oh, there it is. It's on.
Got it, okay. So, anyone, would like to make a motion on this, or?
Sure,
Glenn?
I'd move to reappoint the existing Board of Fire Engineers, Dave Evans, Mike Dwyer, and Ben Janelle.
Second? Glenn, are you there? Did we lose Glenn?
I think we may have lost Glenn.
Angus, can you see if Glenn is there?
I can't, he just shows up as a numbered caller, not his name, so I didn't take note of what number caller he was.
Glenn? Okay, let's hold off on that for a minute and see if Glenn comes back. Request for rent waivers for the Children's Castle and the Learning Tree during the term of the required business closures due to COVID-19. We discussed these in executive session at the last meeting, and we were all in favor of doing this while the businesses are unable to basically receive any tuition or any income at all. They are valuable contributors to the town, so we'd like to keep them as ongoing concern. So that's our rationale for doing. Glenn, are you there?
I just got a text message back. He says he can hear. Oh. Hey, Glenn, try to say something now.
Are you there, guys?
Yeah.
You're caller 8.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
there was some noise coming through that line earlier, so I had muted it and I didn't realize that was you. I deeply apologize, Glenn. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm on, when the wind, it's not windy, I'm on my back deck because that's the best I can get for cell phone coverage. Okay, so I heard everything, so.
We haven't voted it, but we've
Yeah, I heard everything.
motioned in
It's been
second.
moved in second, the Board of Fire Engineers. I would agree with the motion and the second. Kemper, aye.
Archibald, aye.
Parker, aye.
Okay, and now we're moving on to the waiver of the rents for the two tenants.
Make a motion. Yeah, I'm in agreement. I could hear everything. I just couldn't respond.
Okay, all in favor?
I would, if I could.
Kemper.
I think we need to be specific in the motion.
Yeah, I would draw your attention to the recommended form of motion prepared by town council. That was on page 35 of your executive session packet.
Oh, is that where it was? Okay.
Okay.
I believe that this, the language that Mike has drafted, I believe is responsive to the,
To their timeframes.
and also to some of what the board had discussed on,
Okay, so I'll make a motion for Children's Castle. I move the town amend the existing lease for Children's Castle in order to waive rental payments for a portion of the Page School building from April 1st, 2020 until the state order preventing operation of daycare centers is lifted, provided, however, if the Children's Castle receives any grant or payment for business interruption that is allocable to rental costs, the town should be reimbursed its share.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Kemper.
Okay, 3-0.
Okay, and relative to the Learning Tree, I move that the town amend the existing lease with the Learning Tree in order to waive rental payments for a portion of the town hall building from March 16th, 2020, until the state order preventing operation of daycare centers is lifted. Provided, however, if the Learning Tree receives any grant or payment for business interruption that is allocable to rental costs, the town should be reimbursed its share.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Archibald?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is a, review of the warrant article to purchase a new, plow truck.
Why don't you head that up, Archie?
What's that?
Why don't you head that up? You have some new information?
Well, yes, why are we bringing this up? In light of, just information I got from the, listening to, the Division of Local Services again last week. They are probably, more gloom and doom than for some towns than us, because, we're very dependent on the property tax, but a lot of other towns are dependent upon, local aid, sales tax revenue, meals taxes and things like that. And so the Division of Local Services is recommending that municipalities be very conservative in the coming fiscal year, especially about capital purchases. So with that in the back of my mind, even before I heard this, I was thinking, yes, we need to get the truck, but this seems like something that we might be able to hold off a little bit on, because this would be money that we're putting into, we're taking money, we're spending capital money, the capital improvements money for this item, and perhaps we can not put so much in there this year to save money for operating expenses in FY21. So that's what's behind all my thinking. And speaking with the DPW director this afternoon, he had said that because we've had such a low snowfall this year, that the truck got quite a few fewer hours on it than expected, and he feels that we can actually defer that for a year. So I'll leave it at that. Wayne, do you want to comment further on that? He's muted, Angus.
So can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So what Archie says is correct. We probably used the truck for a third of a typical winter this year. We were able to use the small salter truck that we purchased last year. If you recall, we got approval to purchase the small salter for the back of the dump truck, the small dump, and that truck went out more than the big truck did. So that was able to relieve some of the pressure and the use of the truck we're looking to trade in.
Thanks.
So how do we do this? Since the warrants were posted and all that kind of today, are we going to vote as a selectman that we would ask for no action on this at town meeting?
That's certainly, yeah, we can just in our motion, that's all we need to do.
Okay, and is the FinCom aware of this?
They'll be made aware. The FinCom hasn't posted yet, but they're scheduled to meet this coming Monday evening.
Well, it looks like Forbes is on the call right now.
Yeah, Forbes is on the line as well.
Mhm.
But just the
Okay.
committee itself is going to meet on Monday.
Okay, good. Let's make sure they're aware of that, obviously. Okay, anything else?
Okay, that's good. Wayne, I'd like to thank you for that. We're not gonna forget it next time, but I think it's thank you for that. That's all I could say.
That's not a problem.
Don't worry, Wayne. We only do dump trucks.
Was there a motion? Was there a vote on that?
Make a motion that we would, as a selectman, we would table this at town meeting. I don't even know if that's a real motion, but
Motion for no action at town meeting, correct?
yeah, I'm sorry. No action is better. Thanks, Rick.
All in favor? Aye.
Parker, aye.
And Wayne, I wouldn't worry about this because we get dump trucks in years ending in 0, so you don't have to wait. You only have to wait for another 10 years.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Wayne, good thing you got that little truck too.
That saved us for a lot of the small events this year, so
Yeah,
it's
that's great.
paid off. Thank you.
Good deal.
Next item is a discussion of the FY21 police overtime budget. The Board of Selectmen at our I don't know if we formally voted it, but we did want to change. We'll have some changes on our feeling on the budget coming on the police overtime. Keeping it at actually lowering it for a little bit from last year to 50,000. And I'm just trying to find my papers. So, someone else want to make a comment on that while I find my papers?
Yeah, I'm looking for the probably the same paper you are.
Well, I have you're looking for the breakdown that Angus gave us?
Yes.
Okay, so in FY18, we expended, we budgeted 42.8. We expended 46.8. FY19, we budgeted 55.4, but we expended 52. This year we budgeted the exact same amount as FY19, but year to date we're at 36. We're basically at 37. So we felt the reasons I think we had talked about, reasons why we increased in FY19 was because we didn't have enough patrolmen and we were using overtime to fill shifts. But subsequently we have increased our patrolmen, and that was one of the factors that we're saying that we want to decrease it by like 5,500 this year. And looking at the year-to-date expenditures.
In FY19, I believe we were having people that were going to the academy. There were going to be long.
Correct. There were a lot more extenuating circumstances.
Yeah.
And we still didn't, with those circumstances, we still didn't reach what we were budgeted. So we thought it would be, for budgeting reasons, we could bring that down $5,500. In year to date, we've only done 37, basically 39.9. So that would be our recommendation to the FinCom, to Angus, to change the budget. I would say 50,000. Right?
Yeah, this is the chief. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to just go over the overtime a little, just from my side of things. Obviously, the overtime was level funded over the past couple of fiscal years. We're, I guess, trying to make up some of those monies. Obviously, the goal isn't to over budget, and the goal isn't to spend all of the overtime, but there is a method to the madness when figuring out the overtime numbers. Basically, the training is number of officers times 40 hours of overtime each. That's where you come up with the 20,000 figure. The court and the shift coverage, we just went up 3% over the fiscal year 20 numbers. But even the shift coverage itself, the amount of $18,000, that's a sizable amount of money. But if you average out the officers' overtime rate, it's only 39 shifts in a year. which is a little over 3 shifts a month, is what that amount of money would cost. So I guess the overtime rate this year is good. Obviously, like I said, the goal is to be fiscally responsible in spending, and that's what things have worked out well this year. It would have been less. We've had one investigation that only went over a little over a week, cost over $5,000 this year in overtime. 2/3 of the officers that work on the department don't work during the day shift, and court and training occurs during the day. That's, obviously another cost for overtime. And I guess my last concern coming into fiscal year 21 would be with shift coverage with what's going on in the world today. Basically, a hiring has been frozen as far as dispatch and reserve officers go. We have people waiting to get appointed and start training, but we obviously can't do that. I don't know when we'll be able to start again. And 3 of our reserve officers currently, who are working a lot of hours, are all in the queue for full-time jobs, and they could be grabbed up as soon as this, the COVID situation clears. So obviously it was a substantial amount of money, the $60,700 over what was the level funded amount of 55, but I think it's still reasonable, try to prepare. This might be a difficult year as far as overtime and shift coverage goes.
Chief, could you just elaborate? Because I know you and I have talked at some length, but I don't know that the board is fully apprised of the impact of the COVID on the training. You did allude to that, but if you can just give a little more detail on for the new hires and the training that they would normally do and how the COVID has affected that.
Like I said, we have a number of candidates we would like to get appointed, but I can't have people in the FTO program riding around in the cruises with our FTOs. Obviously, with social distancing, it just can't happen. And it's the same on the dispatch end. I can't have dispatch trainees sitting in dispatch right now. So
why not? If they're 6 feet apart.
Well, in dispatch, you might be able to swing it, but there were a couple issues with dispatch employees that I didn't want anybody in there with them. And as far as the FTO goes for the reserve officers, they obviously can't ride around on the cruises. There's only so much of the FTO program that's done in the station as far as going over, rules and regulations, etc. So, in the training for a reserve officer is 2 or 3 months for a green candidate. So that's a concern going forward. If those other reserves leave for full-time jobs, and then obviously we're going to have to start training new reserves and also cover shifts that reserves.
So basically we're talking about $5,000, right?
I'm sorry, Glenn?
We're talking about $5,000, right?
As far as,
I think we're talking about 10 grants because the proposal was.
He requested, yeah, I only have your sheet in front of me. So he requested 60, and we want it to be 50.
correct, so almost 11,000.
But you've only spent, so the difference between FY20 and FY21, so now we're through 10 months. So we're talking 3.7, just even call it 4,000 a month in FY20 versus an additional, so basically that would be, if you were level spending for the rest of this year, that would be 40,000, and now you're saying we're going to need 60 in the next year. That seems like so much different. That's 50%.
Actually,
So-
48, Archie, just not to pick at numbers, but it's closer to 48, 47, 48 at the current rate.
So why don't we just make it 50? And if we have any COVID related things, we deal with it at fall town meeting. because we're probably going to have some other COVID-related things at fall town meeting. And rather than dealing with the unknown at this point, let's clean up the unknown COVID stuff at fall town meeting and make the overtime now at 50.
Let me add this. I keep going back to this, but I got a lot of little pearls of wisdom from at this at the conference with BLS, and they mentioned that the CARES Act, so anything that is budgeted will not be covered by the federal government, but anything that is not budgeted, theoretically, who knows, but may be covered. So in other words, if we're lifting our budget up, and this is through December of 2020, so if we're building our budget up to account for additional spending related to the coronavirus, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot, because that will actually not be covered by the federal government. If we budget it, it's only things that are not budgeted that would actually be reimbursable from the federal government. So I'm just throwing that out there, that if we're over budgeting something because of the
Got it. That's a great point.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Archie.
Well, I'll just say, I'll work with the dollar amounts I'm given, but the issue is, I'll take a pat on the back. We got $18,000 left in the overtime budget this year. Like I said, I try to be fiscally responsible and not spend all the money we're given. But I can't predict court time, what investigations are going to be coming down the road. We're still trying to get a contract signed with the police officers. We don't really have firm figures yet on that money. So, like I said,
I agree with everything.
Why don't we look at the spend rate
Let's,
at the meeting?
Yeah, at fall town meeting, I think we do that. And I'd like to give you a pat in the back too, but it'd have to be like a virtual one. So I'm giving you one right now because of this COVID thing.
Thank you.
Did you wash your hands, Glenn?
Yeah. Not since 1962. So my recommendation is to keep it at 50. Anything COVID, I haven't heard anything. I want to, thank the chief for keeping it down. I appreciate it. And anything like that, these are a bunch of unknowns. Let's deal with it at fall town meeting, like all the other things we're probably going to have to deal with because of all the other unknowns we're dealing with.
I guess the other thing to remember, Jeff, is that, anything that does happen that causes overtime that you can reasonably relate to our response to COVID, we definitely want to track that. And I know that's already been
without a doubt,
but we definitely want to track that.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, great.
Good.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Next.
I'm looking. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. The next discussion is what we should do to address the senior work-off, the tax work-off the program off, but the individuals are not able to come to the town hall to actually do the work. So how do we address that? Angus, do you want to give us a little information?
We can do the best we can.
I think the board has set clear policy on employees in terms of employees continuing to receive compensation based on scheduled hours. I think to look at this as an analogous situation would be to look at the hours that senior tax worker normally would have worked if not for COVID. Where it gets complex, to me anyway, and I would, if you have an opinion on this, is where this is not wages, this is a tax abatement. You know, is there any legal impediment if the board were to favor a policy direction that basically tried to make these people whole from what would have happened if not for the pandemic?
So that's sort of, is that above our pay grade? Do we know?
Yeah,
whether-
where is this coming? Where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? First of all, I'd like to know where it's coming from. So you want us to act on something that could be like a hypothetical that these people could have had a tax, you know, worked off their tax stuff, but they might not have. We don't know that. I mean, it's all hypothetical, isn't it? And I don't mean to seem not very sensitive to the matter, but how do we know they would have done it to begin with? You know, in reality, they could have even been scheduled.
Angus, we're talking about people that have already been in the system, right? Is that correct, or?
We are, but Glenn's correct. It would be.
Yeah, but I mean,
You know,
they could be
it
in
would
the
be a
system, but they
projection
could have
based on
gotten
past
sick and they
experience.
couldn't have. Yeah.
So
I don't know.
where it's
This
coming
is a
from is
slippery slope for me.
the request is coming from, you know, one or more participants in that program. And so the question came to Teresa. Teresa brought the question to me. I'm bringing the question to you. We could certainly, you know, defer and get Mike some more time to look at it, you know, from a legal standpoint. And that.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable with that. And I don't want to seem not very sensitive to the situation, but we're talking about something that they were scheduled to do, and most likely would have done it, but we don't know if they would have done it. And then the COVID thing made sure they couldn't do it. And then they still want to be compensated the tax revenue for something they didn't do because of the COVID. I mean, that's layman. I mean, that's basically just, you know, pretty rough way of doing it. And I'm not making sides here, but basically that's it, right?
That's right. And Archie, if I understood you correctly earlier, you did bring up this question at the DLS call, and this is not something that they had faced before. Is that correct?
Right. They actually had not heard of this problem, and they were gonna try, and they didn't. The DLS person did not have an answer for it, but was going to try and work on it. So maybe we can get an answer from the state.
So it sounds like we want to table this one. Is that what I'm hearing?
Can you hear me? This is Glenn.
We can hear you.
Yeah, how time sensitive is this?
Well, these abatements can be posted as late as the end of the fiscal year. It's more a question of, you know, when people come in with questions, obviously you don't want to push them off indefinitely, but I think as long as they're, you know, we're on a path to-
I don't want to push
That's
anybody
reasonable.
off indefinitely, but if you don't
Yeah,
have any
definitely.
answers to something,
Right.
you have to.
Right. And that-
I mean, I want to have an answer for somebody when they walk in the door, but sometimes that's just not realistic. So I just want to know. I just want to know what the what are time sensitive to this, so we have until the end of June. I'm not saying we need the end of June. I'm just saying we have to the end of June.
Yeah, legally and financially, yes, that is absolutely correct.
Okay. So I would go with the recommendation about getting some more information from DLS and Mike.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Mike, if there is any situations that people were depending on this for their, their well-being and their livelihood and being able to sustain a good life, then those are something that we could address separately through other means.
Yeah, obviously, that could be done. I think asking DLS is the important one because they're the ones who make rulings on what is a lawful expenditure, and so we might as well hear it from them as to how they categorize it.
Can you familiarize myself with this program just so I understand, so we can make sure we have it tonight? Is this a need-based program, or is this somebody that anyone can do? So if you had $1 million in the bank, you could still do this. It's just a hypothetical.
Yep, there's no, it's not indexed to income. It's purely a function of age and other eligibility requirements.
UK.
Glenn, there's also a limit to how much you can earn.
I understand.
Yeah.
Earn, not have in the bank.
Right. All right, we'll do some more research on this one.
Okay. Article H, FY21 budget. Angus has about a half a dozen items that we still need to talk a little bit more about on the FY21 budget. We're pretty much in agreement with the recommendations of the Finance Committee, but there were a few discrepancies, so we thought we'd air them now so everyone knows where we stand.
Okay, and before I get into that, there are actually two things I'm hoping we can get done with this discussion. One is I had put out a call a while back to department heads and other boards and commissions and things if they saw any need to change their requested FY21 budget as a result of COVID-19. So I did get a submittal, as you see on page 51 of your packet, from the Board of Health. This was not unexpected. They told me, right away, several weeks ago, that this was going to be pending, and then we got the more detailed write-up. So that's a specific request that's in front of you. That's a different number than what you've seen in the budget presented previously. So I would look to the board, and I would suggest maybe let's take this one up initially. In the budget that you had previously seen, the public health nurse is in for FY21 for $3,840, and for the reasons detailed in the meeting packet, the Board of Health has requested a revised line of $8,175 for FY20. So depending on what the board, whether if you refer this or favor this, I would then obviously bring this to the FinCom at their next meeting for them to consider this, since this obviously differs from what they had acted on.
I'm actually in favor of this, except for what I just said about budgeting then makes it's sort of a bad behavior gets rewarded, basically. If we don't budget it, then we may be rewarded by the federal government, and if we have good behavior and budget it and have it paid for, then we don't get the money. So that's just it's not saying we would guarantee to get the money, but I'm just throwing that out there.
This is something we can, one of these things we can address at fall town meeting, keep it, and then if we can get it, I might be able to get it.
I wonder if by the time we get to finally get to town meeting, if we'll have a better handle on whether or not there is going to be local aid money, or what the nature of the local aid money will be, and if we could maybe go to town meeting with the higher number, but with the understanding that we might drop it back down to where it was if we see that if it becomes clear that, that there is going to be local aid coming from the federal government.
Well, so I do want to make clear, I think you had, I think I made you aware of this previously, but I don't believe it's been talked about in a meeting. But as I think you know, the Board of Health was successful in getting now 2 supplemental fundings from the Commonwealth through MAPC for $12,500. So I just want to make clear for people watching, it's not just a cost, that they are bringing some new revenues to the table as well.
Yeah.
But would something like this even be qualified? Because it's not extra. It's just the nurse doing the same amount of work, but just at a higher rate, correct?
There is a rate change, and that's certainly an important point, Glenn, but it also takes into account an estimated increase in the number of hours that person is spending. So.
Now,
So Angus,
all those things were estimated in the beginning. Because of our low COVID rate in West Newbury percentage statewide, are those hours still needed? You know what I mean? We all estimated that stuff in the beginning. We still need all of that? I mean, I understand it's a severe situation and so forth and so on. I understand all that.
What do you mean?
Our percentage is so low compared to the average.
Paul, are you still on the line, or is there a Board of Health representative?
yeah, I'm here, Angus, and Tom Fahey, he should be online. If you can unmute him, he'll be happy to speak on behalf of that.
Okay, I don't have anyone muted. He might have muted himself. But I just hit unmute alt just to be sure, but I don't believe I had anyone muted. There are some people who are showing up as muted, but that means they've muted themselves.
All right, we'll give him a second to try to figure that out. Or if not, I'll go for it.
Tom Fahey,
All right.
call Tom Fahey's.
Looking like that might not work.
So without big conversation then tonight, then why don't we go back to our original thing and take this up at fall town meeting and see
Well,
if
why
we
don't
can
we,
get any additional funding. I don't know. I'm just trying to move it along.
Well, there's 2 things. If you want me to speak on it, I will. Since Tom's not around.
Hello, it's Tom Fahey calling in.
Okay, Tom.
We got
How
you,
you
Tom.
doing? All right, I'm sorry about that. I need my teenage daughter to help me out.
There you go.
So what I wanted to explain on this estimate of the public health nurse. So this is at best a really tough moving target to get any kind of idea on what the impact could potentially be in our next fiscal year. And so what I did is I looked at what the state's current rate was of infections, positive cases, reported positive cases, and that was from April 22nd. And I came up with a rate that was 0.6%, which was actually similar to that's what the state had. And then when I looked at our current amount of cases that we were having, we were kind of coming in at that same rate of about 0.6%. So in trying to estimate this and knowing that this is something that is projected to continue until we're able to, have people vaccinated, and that the potential of a resurgence of it in the fall and the winter, even after we get through this potential this time right now, I was trying to come up with reasonable numbers, and then working with Paul and also working with our public health nurse that has more extensive experience, I think, than anybody as far as dealing with it. And with that, coming up with, how many potential cases could we have in West Newbury, within a year, potentially, that would sound reasonable. And based on what our current rate was, which is about a half of about a case every 2 weeks, you figured, that would have about 26 cases a year. And then working off of that, that would reflect a 0.6 percentage of the population of West Newbury of around 26 cases. So we kind of rounded that number up. Diane, our nurse, estimated that her average amount of time that she would spend on the intake, the tracing, and the monitoring of each individual positive in our town would be about 2.25 hours. She said it could go up, it could go down. Sometimes they're a lot simpler than others. And that's basically how I backed into the numbers of, potentially 67 hours per year that you would potentially have to work on these cases. So this number could potentially be lower. I hope it is lower, but it could potentially be more. So it's a moving target. I mean, I think I did a reasonable job in coming up with some numbers. And Paul and Diane were also in agreement that the numbers were, conservative. So any other questions on that? I mean, that's my best estimate at this point.
Tom, it's Paul. Did you want to talk about the rate increase from the hourly rate for the typical what we normally have now that we researched?
Yeah, so so when I was talking to Paul about this, I work in a hospital. I work at Dudley Hospital, so I have a sense of what the nurses are getting being paid on the inpatient side, but I really didn't have a sense of what was on the outpatient side. So we were able to survey some of the local boards of health in the area to get a sense of what their nurses were being there. Their public health nurses were being paid, and we kind of averaged it out. And there were some that were lower in the $45. There was one that was at $60 per hour, and we felt that, and although the board hasn't had a formal conversation about this, that $50 an hour was a reasonable rate. We're quite lucky to have the nurse that we have that has the extensive experience that she has, and is extremely well informed. Many other boards are really struggling with competencies to be able to handle this big influx of work, and you can see that the state is actually trying to help out the local boards of health that either have overwhelming amounts or they don't have people that are skilled as our nurse. So that's I believe that within the market, I believe that that's a reasonable rate that they come to with her.
What's our current rate, Tom?
Paul, what's the current rate right now?
Well, the current rate now is basically based on 40 hours, $40 an hour, 2 hours a week, so a total of 8 hours a month, based on regular disease surveillance, Lyme disease, Giardia, influenza, and all that. But anything beyond the typical diseases like TB or COVID in this case is a lot more work, a lot more surveillance, a lot more tracing versus just a typical Lyme disease or, babesiosis or any of those like that. People, it is just one phone call to the resident and then you move on.
Okay.
So Archie, do you want me to summarize the other topics that you referenced, the other budget?
Okay, no, let's deal with this one and finish this one off.
Okay.
My feeling is that we're certainly getting our money's worth. I think that from speaking with Paul at other times and stuff, that we're getting good value for what we're paying for. I think we've got almost a bargain in considering what, we're only talking about a few thousand here. I'm sort of in favor of, in this case, even with trying to, it's going to be a tight fiscal year. In this case, I have no problem with increasing this line item. That's my feeling.
And, falling back to the note you had before, Archie, about the potential for federal reimbursement, do we not think that's relevant? I understand.
It's a weird situation. I don't know how you. I suppose the people that are writing the federal law weren't thinking they weren't thinking of our fiscal year versus, the federal fiscal year is different than the state fiscal year, and maybe they weren't thinking in that fashion, but it makes it complicated. If we do budget it, then we're not going to get for it. But I still think that this person, I think she deserves what this request at the same time. So I'm sort of torn.
Well, I mean, I based on, the ranges, the compensation ranges around us, it sounds like it's not unreasonable to ask at all to, to go from $40 to $50, because it sounds like that runs sort of mid-range with compensation in our area. And then the question is, do we want to budget all those hours now, or do we want to hedge our bets a little bit? And I don't know, maybe it's, maybe it's picking things apart a little too finely to think that we're going to do that.
I have a question, if I could, for Paul or for Tom. With the supplemental revenue that has come in from the state through MAPC, is that an opportunity to absorb some of these additional costs, or do you see that that's going to be used up with other COVID-19 expenses?
Regards to that, Angus, I'm not sure. We can probably absorb some of I think we got two things. I think, if the selectmen were going to only approve the line item adjustment, then I would like to see the line item adjustment approved for that first part, the $100 a week or $400 a month. So $4,800 for the typical FY21 non-COVID public health work. And then the COVID is extra money if it's needed. So I think we need to kind of separate the $4,800 for the FY21 with or without COVID, and then the COVID is extra if need be. So regards to, go ahead.
But the question was, what are we doing with the $12,000?
So
what are we applying that to?
We applied it for supplies. We've applied it for her monthly payment for March rather, and then now we got to pay in April. I got emails out to, we got another $5,000 coming in probably next week from that organization. I've asked the organization to find out, I'm not sure how long this money's going to be out there. If we have available funds in FY21, do we have to return it, or can we continue to use it? I can't get a straight answer because no one really knows, because it's just, a work in progress for everyone. So if the selectmen voted to or approve the extra COVID money beyond the $4,800, then again, that's not guaranteed to be spent. It only will be spent if we get those 30 cases in FY21. If we only get 15 of those cases in FY21, then we can expect that COVID expenses, the 67 hours times the $50 will be cut in half.
If we can do that much of accounting on it, then I would support that, because that's the whole total unknown that we don't. So, and if we could do that type of accounting and only that extra money be spent on that, I have no problem with it. And then if it's not spent, it will be zeroed out to free cash at the end of the year. And if maybe we can put that in a separate line item, that it can only be spent on COVID.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. I think, like Board of Health Board would like to see the 4,800 for the typical public health line item, and then anything beyond that is COVID related. So we may be able to get that from MAPC that we're getting funding through now, or you may be able to get through it through the money that you guys were talking about before. But again, it's fluid. We really don't know. I mean, we may only have 10 cases. We don't know. I mean, social distance is working, but if, everyone opens the floodgates too quick, then we could see more than 30 cases. So it's just an estimate based on what we have at the current moment.
Okay.
Got it.
Is it more complicated, or can we have two line items, or what do you think we should do there?
That wouldn't be complicated to do if that would be easy enough to break out. If I'm hearing Paul correctly, it sounds like the request would be to bump up that 3840 line item to an adjusted rate to take into account the increase in hourly rate. And then, Archie, if I'm hearing you and Glenn correctly, it would be a separate line item added for the supplemental costs for the COVID monitoring as needed. So it would be available in the budget. The Board of Health could hit expenses to it, but it would only be available for that purpose.
I would totally support that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So what's the other stuff?
Okay, so I'm going to, so basically, and a lot of this is really minor housekeeping stuff, but I was, as I was keying in the FinCom recommendations on different line items, I wanted to highlight any area where the FinCom referred budget differs in any way from the Selectmen budget or the budget I presented. And then I'll bring these same things to the FinCom on Monday, and we'll see what we can get into alignment. So I'm going to make my, if you bear with me a second, I'm going to share my screen, if I can remember how to do that. And then I can show you the, there's 6 areas of the budget, and it's, let's see. And a lot of these really are, well, a couple of them anyway, are somewhat housekeeping. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay, great. Share. Okay. Okay, so now, good. Okay, that was easy. So to take them in order, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So during the FinCom's review of the proposed town manager budget, I had suggested to them that, while the budget as proposed had carried funding to do some mailed newsletters, I did suggest to them that might be an area that they could trim a little bit, and I wouldn't object to that. That would just mean, I think there's more we could do with like a digital electronic newsletter. With that said, we do get some criticism from some quarters that people think we're overly reliant on web stuff. So I would like to do a print newsletter. So basically what you see here, the original proposed budget, the 298, carried funding that I feel would cover 2 mailed newsletters. The adjusted number the FinCom recommended would only support 1 mailed newsletter. So that's the difference we have there. And why don't I, Archie, if it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and summarize all of them, and you can
Yes.
go. Okay. So the next one is in the Area Conservation Commission. At the time that the FinCom had reviewed the proposed CONCOM budget that I had brought forward, That number, that 33,891, had carried 2 additional hours per week for the conservation agent to perform these land agent responsibilities. And it had also carried a increase in the hourly rate by 6%, which was intended to bring the wage more in line with what some other agents make in the region. Subsequent to that, the selectmen clarified that the board supported the 2 hours, but did not support the wage increase and wanted to keep that a COLA only. So the board number you see reflects the 2 hours with a 2% COLA, whereas the FinCom number reflects the 2 hours at a 6% hourly rate. The third difference is in the police department budget. That's what we talked about earlier tonight. And at the time that the FinCom reviewed the budget, it had carried the numbers that had largely come from Chief Duran's proposed budget, which I had recommended. And subsequent to that, the selectmen made some adjustments to the wage lines, including overtime. So when the FinCom recommended that, it's not like they differed from what you said. They just didn't yet have that. So I'll bring that back to them Monday, and and I'll ask them, to re-vote based on the selectmen's number. Education, you'll see that the FinCom number is actually a little bit higher there, simply because at the time the FinCom reviewed the budget, we were working with estimated Whittier Tech numbers, and it wasn't until April 10th that we got the hard numbers from Whittier. They ended up being a little bit better. So the actual Whittier numbers are reflected in the selectmen budget. The FinCom recommendation was based on an older estimated number. So I fully expect the FinCom will adjust its recommendation to match the selectmen's in that case. In the library, the initial proposed budget that I brought to the FinCom, it did not carry the requested 10-hour-a-week new position that the library board had put in. And so therefore the FinCom vote, this 359, was based on the proposed budget without that new position. Subsequent to that, the Board of Selectmen did take the position that they support the new 10-hour-a-week position. So the selectmen's number is higher in that line. And that's it.
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead,
Can you
Glenn.
hear me?
Yes.
On the additional hour for
We're
a
not here.
specific, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me now? I'm back
Yeah.
out on my deck. It's cold out. That's why I went back inside, but I got to go back on my deck. That additional 2 hours was for a very specific new part of the job. So I would actually like if we can make that a different line item for that particular new job, so it doesn't just get melted in to the Concom's position hourly.
It is.
I think that's
In the budget behind this, it is broken out because the board had made that point clearly. So it is broken
okay.
out.
Good.
That is
Okay,
just the
thank
top
you.
line sum.
Glenn,
Okay, I just don't.
I mean, maybe in the future we like it and that can actually be expanded. Who knows? Either
Exactly. And yep. And, my thought about, having quarterly reports back for those 2 hours, because it's a new position, to justify, to give us an understanding. We can work on that later. Okay. I agree with everything Angus said. I need to.
I sort of,
Supposed to or not.
my feelings on things are that we I don't want to change any of, at least my votes, the way the selectmen did it. I think I was, we heard from the library. Initially I was against it, and they changed my mind, and I'm going to I'm going to stay with, I'm not gonna rechange my mind. I'm gonna stay with the recommendations that, at least as far as I'm concerned, that are there. For all the items.
Yep.
Rick, what are your feelings?
Yeah, on the Concom, I want to keep it out. I think that's it's a service that it's intended to provide. I think is valuable. And given the current situation, I don't know the library position to not knowing what financial situation is going to run into. But I guess I'm not going to change my mind on it.
Excuse me, I'm gonna just jump in here for a second. There's a person with a microphone online right now that's got a lot of background noise going on that is really inhibiting at least my ability to hear what's going on. So I would suggest if you're not speaking, please mute yourself so that the rest of us could hear the speaker and understand what's going on. Thank you.
Good point.
Yeah, I think, Rick, if you could repeat basically everything you said, because I think we're all in the same boat as Forbes on that one.
Okay. Oh, I was just saying gibberish anyway. No. I guess I'll just say I would continue to support both the 2 hours for the Concom and the 10-hour position for the library.
Any further comments?
About the idea of the reducing the manager budget, so with one newsletter, because that's something that hasn't been presented to you before tonight.
Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot about that one. Yeah, no, that sounds reasonable. And I also have I've heard a couple of comments about not going completely electronic on our communications. So having at least one printed newsletter is probably a good idea.
Okay, Angus, if you're feeling that way, this was your request and your suggestion, it's not that critical, then I would agree.
I'm okay with it. I mean, I think it'd be great, but you all know, we're juggling a lot of things, and so workload wise, so we're still working toward having the bandwidth to do that. So I think including one print newsletter for next fiscal year, I think is a reasonable decision to make in the context of things.
And the way things are going this year, this is not going to be a normal year to begin with.
Right, but that is part of why Archie, I had to the announcements tonight, and I really just whatever we can do to get people to subscribe to those updates. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it really is our best and certainly our most efficient way of getting information out. And we have a good number of subscribers, but it's still only a percentage of the town. We'd love to get everybody subscribed to that. But I would say, from what I've heard from both Rick and Archie, I would say we'd go with that reduced number for the manager budget, which is fine with me.
Okay.
And then on the,
Can you scroll down so we can see the total, so that we just see the?
Yeah.
The,
so, there's somewhere FinCom's a little higher, a little lower. There's some works in there like the Whittier budget. So it's
really close anyway, yeah.
it is, yeah.
I just want to make one comment, and I am not speaking, this is Forbes Dury, member of the FinCom, but I am not speaking for the FinCom here. But I do just want to have the selectmen understand that we're being asked to reevaluate a number of the line items at a subsequent to be determined meeting. And in addition to that, the votes were taken on a line item basis for this particular budget were essentially pre-COVID votes. Okay, so and that may mean nothing at all, but I just want everybody to understand the context in which the votes were taken and that we are being asked to revote items. That's all. Thank you.
But you don't have to revote them. You can have them the way you like them.
Absolutely correct. No. That's my point. We're being asked to. There are certain items which have changed since the time in which we voted. We're being asked to revote. I just reminding the Board of Selectmen that the votes which were taken were in a pre-COVID environment, and that what we're being asked to do now is in a post-COVID environment. That's all.
Right. And I mean, but we're going to be in a post-COVID environment for the next 6 months. Everything is that we decide now is subject to change. You got to remember that. There's so many things that are up in the air. Revenue projection, expense projections, lots of things are not. This isn't going to be a usual year. That's all I can say.
No question. Agreed.
Okay. Okay, we good with that, Angus?
Yeah, I've got what I need. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, did we get to a resolution on health? Did we? Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm clear. I think we would include the requested increased rate for the public health nurse in the existing item, and then
two line
estimated. I'm sorry.
And then 2 line items for.
Yes, and then a separate line item for the additional time at that different rate. I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. Yeah, I think I've got what I need on this topic.
At different time, that's related specifically to COVID.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So for, what you'll have for Monday, this will all be broken down very clearly so that FinCom is able to only focus on those handful of items that have changed.
Our next item is a discussion of the free cash issue and whether to and how it affects the tax rate and so forth. And I just want to give a little preamble again from what the warnings we got from the DLS that
We're almost to the item I wanted, so I'm going to listen for a little bit.
Okay. For example, suppose we are unable to come to have a town meeting before June 30th. So the way that will work is we will be able to send our expenses to DLS with a projected 1/12 budget, 1/12 being what we will spend in July. And that will not necessarily be just 2019's budget divided by 12. It really will have to be specific with expenses. And in July, we spend a lot more money, say, than we might in August. They're not always the same, especially in July, because it's unclear whether we may be able to defer, for example, our funding of the Essex County retirement. Do we have to put the lump sum in July, or can it be spread out differently than it usually is? Lots of questions like that. But the point being that we will be able to do that, and in order to be able to do that, we will be spending free cash to run our operating until we actually have an operating budget passed to use and appropriate by town meeting. So my take-home message is we really want to be chary with free cash. At the moment, we want to not take things out of free cash, and we want to actually add things to that we were going to put from free cash into other areas. The stabilization, capital stabilization, for example. I think we don't want to do that because we don't know what's going to happen, whether we can even have a town meeting. So in that case, we want to really not spend free cash until we've actually had a town meeting. So that's just my recommendation on that. We're sort of in uncharted waters. I think that what we one of the things I don't want to do, for example, is we had planned to take 300,000 out of free cash and put it into stabilization in order to cover the unexpected expense of the Middle Street Bridge. Well, I think I would be strongly against that. We will have that money available in free cash, but I would not lock it up in the stabilization account in case we actually need it for operating expenses in FY21. So I'll leave my lecturing for the moment.
Yeah, Archie, I think that's real rational. The only thing that occurs to me is saying this about $300,000. I actually see another reason maybe to hold on to that anyway. But that $300,000 that that was going to go to stabilization wouldn't go to stabilization unless we had a town meeting anyway.
It's I know it's a chicken and egg thing. Yeah.
But yeah, no, but I just in light of uncertainty about what else might happen due to the COVID issue, we could put that $300,000 into free cash next year just as well as we can for stable. I'm sorry, we could put the $300,000 free cash into stabilization intended to be used towards the bridge. We could do that next year.
So, sorry, Forbes Finance Committee, does the if we do not put the $300,000 into the stabilization account for the bridge, does that affect our ability to complete the agreements with Newburyport in terms of getting loans and the state financing for the bridge?
I don't see how it. No. We can sign the contract for the bridge tomorrow if we want, and we want to do that.
Mm-hmm. And if we sign the contracts for the bridge to complete the process, how would we pay for it?
But for the for the Mass Works grant of yeah, we can sign that without having promised to put money in a specific account for it. Yes.
Just to elaborate, Forbes, if we accept the Mass Works funds, we are contractually agreeing with the Commonwealth to, pursue the project based on the timeline outlines. So, I think putting it in stabilization is kind of good peace of mind that it's set aside, but what Archie's saying is not, is correct as well. As long as that money's there, the town is, making a commitment to that project by accepting those funds, but the Commonwealth isn't looking at, whether we've got that money in our right pocket or our left pocket.
Yeah, and the plan, Forbes, had, based on the CIC, the capital committee, was to put 300,000 in this year and another 300,000 in next year. And this is a change to that, but we would know then what we do know now about COVID.
I have a question. So hypothetically, we don't have our town meeting and we have to go to the 1/12 budget. We start spending free cash. Then after we have our town meeting, do we then use those tax revenues that were allocated at town meeting to pay for that money, and then that money gets put back into free cash? Or what happens there?
I've been wondering that too. That's a good question.
I've never had to experience this,
I
obviously.
don't know. They say that. I don't know.
Glenn, would you mind repeating that? I just want to make sure I follow.
Archie made reference to he wants to keep free cash because if we're not able to have our town meeting, we're going to have to go to a 1/12 budget, and that 1/12 budget then needs to be funded through free cash and not through tax revenue. That's what I understood what you said. And then hypothetically, we have a budget, we have a town meeting in August, just say, and then we've gone through a month paying things out of free cash. Now, does that replenish from the budget that we just approved, or then do we downsize the budget and have to then use free cash for the first month of our new budget?
That's a great question, Glenn. I think the answer would be that the budget would be the full 100% budget, and that would basically repay from raise and appropriate. It would repay the amount that you've expended from free cash. Mike, I see you nodding. Do you see it the same way?
Well, I mean, my feeling of it is this is a question that DLS is obviously the DOR, too, will have processes in place for this, because obviously if anyone's affected by it, they're going to have to know how to treat it. So, yeah, I mean, you're not going to lose the money, basically, is that once you voted in a certain amount for a budget, then that's been voted in. So effectively, it will replace the free cash.
Does it replace it a year later when free cash?
Oh, no, because that's
instantly.
It's treated just like the state budget, because the state does this all the time, but the basically is that they get credited for those revenues. So this isn't this isn't the first time that the state is faced with doing something like this. But you use your fiscal year. I mean, the same things will happen. I believe, I understand. You do your accounting ending the fiscal year. It'll still, you still just have the availability of the funds, based upon, collection. So it's not like you're going to have a cash flow problem or anything like that. Or will you reduce it? I mean, once you vote, even in July, $13 million, you have available all $13 million.
So, another question I have that's related to this is, so the town's budget is a little over $15 million a year. So that works out to about $1.25 million per month. And we have in free cash a little over $2 million. So we really have to get to town meeting and get this all done, sometime in July at the very worst, because otherwise we're going to run out of free cash sometime in August, right? Would we burn through our free cash?
I don't think it works quite like that.
No, it's not quite this.
Oh, okay, good. Then educate me, because that's okay.
Yeah, well, so it's basically the difference between the accounting side and the treasury side. Because it's not like the free cash is all sitting in a bank account and we're drawing it down and we're out of free cash. It's more just on the books. So, if the town is going to raise and appropriate, and it is going to, it's got that financial kind of asset, even though those funds haven't been raised yet. You are, it's obviously totally uncharted territory and totally unprecedented in the Commonwealth that you could expend funds from July 1st on before the voters have authorized the raise and appropriate. So, in the instance where the voters approve a budget that's less than what's proposed, the town's going to need to make adjustments in the remainder of FY21. You can't exceed what the voters, they're taxing themselves. They give us that authority. But in terms of the actual cash flow, that's a totally different.
I see it was as you talking, I'm realizing, there was a sort of an omission of cash flow in my thought. Yeah,
because in the normal course of things, we wouldn't receive the first tax payment until several months into the new fiscal year anyway. So,
right.
No, I mean, the tax bills will still go out in August.
Right, but we wouldn't receive those revenues right.
Okay, sorry.
What's the next thing?
So what do we want to get resolved here, Angus?
I want, I think the main point that's important for everyone to understand is that as a matter of course, for at least the last 4 years, the town every fall has appropriated some amount of free cash to offset the tax rate. And because that draw was greater for the FY20 than it has been for prior years, any amount of free cash transfer for FY21 that's less than what was transferred in FY20 is effectively a tax increase. It's not really a tax, but in terms of, it kind of is, because those dollars that aren't coming from free cash have to come from the taxpayer's pocket. So I think that's the point that the FinCom and Forbes can articulate this better than I can. But I think they want to make sure that everyone's aware that the budget and the estimated tax, that the estimates that have been made of tax rate impact do rely on this infusion of free cash. And so they want to make sure, as we all do, that that's a sustainable financial plan.
I don't see doing that at least until the fall town meeting. There's too many unknowns right at the moment.
I agree. And I think the type of analysis that, has been requested, I do think is, it's right now there are a lot of moving parts. And so I don't know, when the FinCom meets Monday, I'll do the best I can to provide the best information we can. But I think that's the main topic is, I think FinCom just wants to make sure that that point is made explicit and that it's not in the fall that, and it's not so much the Board of Selectmen, I think so much as maybe the broader public or the voters, is that people shouldn't be surprised when there's a fall town meeting article to transfer free cash to offset the tax rate specifically.
Okay.
But just to add on to that, the additional question is, does that transfer take us below the DLS suggested minimum thresholds for free cash? And additionally, how does that impact future years in terms of budgeting and allocations to free cash?
I don't think these are questions that are answerable at the moment. They're like the the bridge 300,000. Questions like that. That 300,000 makes a big difference, and so I don't think they're answerable at this point.
Archie, on that topic, with that article, does the board tonight want to look at changing its recommendation for town meeting for the 300,000 to perhaps recommend that be passed over? I'm just trying to discern what I heard a couple of minutes ago.
I certainly would, but I don't know I can't speak for anybody else.
At this point, I would say no, because let's, we can do no action on town meeting floor. And we're speculating a bunch of stuff right now.
It's really just a matter of what's in the FinCom booklet. You're exactly right, Glenn. I mean, you could put something in the booklet, change your position on town meeting. You could put nothing in the booklet and hold off and make your recommendation at town meeting.
Well, I think if we stick with what our beliefs are when making the budget, and then at town meeting floor, if we have to vote in action, I think the people would appreciate us bringing information saying, hey, listen, this is the reason why we recommended it this way, but now we waited as long as we could. These are the situations that we have in hand, and this is the reason why we're for no action tonight. And we didn't know this when we wanted to wait till the last minute, or go forth because the information at that point is favorable to go forth with the articles. I mean, we don't know. Because we could say no and vote with no action, and then on town meeting floor, 2 months, it could be different. Or a month, whatever it is.
Right. You mean we could also, we might get to fall town meeting and find that things look much better, much less bad than we had anticipated they might. And although I understand the reasoning for not for doing things at annual town meeting as opposed to fall town, essentially saving fall special town meeting for special issues that couldn't reasonably be anticipated. We can't reasonably anticipate what's going to happen in the next few months. So we could make the transfer from free cash to stabilization in the fall.
Mm-hmm. The only reason why we're second guessing ourselves is COVID-19.
Right.
So,
right.
And so let's, wait until the last minute to make those decisions. I think.
Yeah,
it could get worse.
Even though I don't want to lock the money up, there's no reason we can't vote no. Just recommend no action if we want to at town meeting. There's no reason to change anything in the booklet at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Great.
Okay, next item is recommendations on changing the credit card usage policy and the disbursements policy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been chipping away at these DLS policies. There was a lot of them. We didn't want to take them all at once because every one of them to it, and every one of them has implications for job responsibilities and so forth. So We've been taking them 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, and these 2 have kind of risen to the surface as something that have gotten more focus and I think are timely and I think will be helpful. So I would recommend adoption of policies as written. The only question mark I have is the highlighted sections in the disbursements policy on just what's the right amount of petty cash, not free cash, petty cash. You know, to me, that's a fairly ministerial detail that if the board's comfortable voting it, I can work with Stephanie once she's back in the office, and we can work with the department heads on whether that should be $100, $200, or $300. But other than that, you know, put in front of you red lines from what the DLS draft to what we at a staff level put together, and you'll see, I think we've kind of customized it, made it something that's workable. So I'd recommend the policies as drafted in front of you for this credit card usage and the disbursement policy.
You there?
Yes.
Yeah, the amount would be, you guys be telling us not telling you.
Yeah,
Correct?
it's just because, you know, yeah. I mean, Stephanie's been out.
I mean, because you're the one who knows, like, at the end of the month, go, oh, you know, we're down on petty cash. We need to do another another check to get more money into petty cash. Ooh, I wish it was more. We don't know that. I mean, you guys are the ones who.
Yeah, that's a minor point. Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the new policy outlined in the packet tonight.
Second that.
Further discussion? I'd just like to ask Angus on the credit card policy, the third part of the credit card. So the highlighted areas about the credit limits. I mean, I sort of don't understand the verbiage there.
Wait, on the credit card policy, which paragraph?
The third paragraph, literally the policy thing that's underlined. The town may also have credit card limits with. So in other words, we have a Staples card and we also have a Visa card. Is that what you're saying? Is that what it means or what?
Yeah, the way the DLS wrote this policy, it's referencing the town's primary credit card, which we have. What I did is add that sentence because we also have credit accounts with Staples and Amazon and so forth. And the main point of this policy is to reinforce that is the town treasurer who controls those purchases. And so departments need to get pre-approval before making a purchase with the town credit card. And I wanted to make sure it was clear that also applied to these credit accounts because that's the only way my office can make sure that we don't overspend the credit card is if there's centralized authority and centralized record keeping of what purchases are made on the credit card.
And when the bills come in, if they were authorized purchases, so you don't have to chase them all around. You
got that right, Glenn.
Oh, okay, Angus. So I'm just trying to think this through. So suppose you have I don't know, a Home Depot card which
we do.
What is the difference between that and a vendor that just says I'm going to do you when the job's done?
The difference is really to make sure, two things. One is to make sure that we don't overspend the credit limit, because if you have multiple people making charges on the same card and there's not any centralized.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the one thing. And the second thing is, and Stephanie can articulate, but I know she really feels strongly, and I think she's in line with DOR on this, that the credit card purchase really ought to be the last resort. You know, it's much preferable if you have someone send you an email. Just from an accounting standpoint, in terms of the audit trail, the paper trail, you know, there's credit card invoices and linking it all to the actual bills. It's kind of a bookkeeping.
Yeah. Okay, this is like, so that two departments didn't use the Home Depot card at the same time, that kind of thing.
Right,
Okay. And overspend the limit, yeah.
exactly.
Okay, okay.
And to make sure these credit cards are, being charged for appropriate things and we're just not using them a bunch of times.
Right.
I got it. Never mind. I'm gonna talk. So,
Okay.
so there's been a motion and it's been seconded that we would, approve the credit card policy that was outlined in the thing tonight.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Rick?
Yeah, oh, you didn't hear me. Yes, aye, Parker. Aye.
Okay.
Great. Thanks. The next item is really just informational. That the Green Communities report had been, the annual report had been approved. So I don't know, Rick, unless you wanted to elaborate, that was really just there to make the board aware.
Yeah, I guess the only thing to point out is that there was a note in there about updating the fuel efficient vehicle policy. And I took a look through that. I don't think there's really, there may be some minor revision to the way we currently have things phrased. Essentially, they've upped the average mileages or the miles per gallon that vehicles have to get because vehicles have been changing. I don't think it has any real impact on us. There is some mention about what are currently exempt vehicles when fuel efficient alternatives become available for exempt vehicles, that we should then as we acquire or update vehicles, we should move to the fuel efficient alternatives. And we're actually planning to do that with the new police vehicle, where we're applying for a Green Communities grant to contribute towards the cost of the new Ford hybrid sedan that Chief Duran will be using.
Great.
That's that.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, next item, you have meeting minutes from the last couple of meetings on April 13th and April 9th.
So moved.
Yeah, I had one comment. Let me see if I can find that. I don't know where it was. It was minor.
You know what it's about?
No, I don't recall now. There was a lot of pages. I should have highlighted it.
If it's
Let's hold off then. Why don't we just push them off? We're pretty up to date. We can do it next meeting.
Okay, sure. That sounds fine, Glenn. Why don't we do that? I'll find it, but it was.
Better to get it right with than rush it.
Yeah, why don't we hold off? Because I'm not going to read again right now.
Okay, item N, updates regarding the Crescent Street 40B proposal.
All right, so we've been receiving a lot of public correspondence, questions, comments, concerns, and been sharing with those with the board on a fairly current basis. I had made a commitment to put together an FAQ and to get that onto the town website. Obviously, I'm behind schedule on that. It's not for lack of attention to the matter. It's just a matter of juggling things with staffing shortages and so forth. So We are, received what's been sent. We are continuing to work on responses. What I've said to some people I've spoken with is I'd rather get it right and get it late than put something out hasty, which could end up becoming a problem in terms of, giving incomplete or inaccurate information. So with that said, I do want to emphasize that the stage of the process that we're at right now with the Mass Housing Partnership, the MHP site and project eligibility letter, there is no permit presently pending before the town. This is a request the developer has made of Mass Housing. Mass Housing in turn has requested the town make comments. So we're in the process of the town putting together comments to send to Mass Housing. A primary objective of this stage of the process is to identify the issues that need to be explored in more detail if and when the permit, the project actually does reach the local permitting stage, the comprehensive permit. So I think with the various comments and questions people have sent, that's very helpful in basically helping to define the scope of review and identifying those topic areas that really need to be drilled down on in more detail if and when we get to permitting. One other item, obviously we continue to correspond with the developer and his team on requests for information that they've sent, in particular on water. That's something that's an active area of focus as they look to get the tests they need for like fire flow and so forth. And then one of the other items that I'd like to get pinned down is when do we want to have a site visit and how do we want to organize that? And I know the board already gave direction on that at the last meeting. My only concern is how do we, my concern is if we publicly announce the date and time of a site walk, even if we strongly discourage people from appearing because of social distancing concerns, I am concerned about the actual reality of, getting too many people together. When really the goal is just to walk the site. So, I thought maybe because there is some real interest among, residents in being part of that, I'm not sure whether we want to ask the developer to have a separate site walk for residents as opposed to the board and staff. But that's one of the kind of tangible issues that we got to pin down, relatively soon.
Angus, one of the questions I saw, and this is sort of not a factual question, but a process question, and I thought maybe this would be a good time just to at least get that one answered. It was someone mentioned they wanted to know when the town would be hiring, a technical assistance, and just explain when that takes place in the process and how that person gets picked.
So great question, Archie. You're referring to the technical assistance that Mass Housing offers. Right. We would become eligible to apply for that if and when a comprehensive permit is actually filed for locally.
I think they were thinking, why haven't we done it yet, kind of thing. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, we are not eligible until there's actually a permit pending before us. And that cannot happen because the developer cannot apply for that comprehensive permit unless and until a project eligibility letter is issued by Mass Housing. And so I did correspond with Mass Housing actually a couple of months ago on that. And, while we have to go through a process to apply for that, they basically all but assured us that when the time comes, we will get technical assistance. The process in that case, there's a pre-approved list of consultants that MHP has pre-qualified. And so we would be limited to the consultants on their list. And that's going to be a matter of who's available and, which is partly a function of the consultants' other workload and geography and travel time and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, it's also important to speak a little bit about the scope of that consultant's work, because while there are other third parties that I think the town would certainly want to engage within the permitting process to look in detail at whether that's civil engineering or traffic or stormwater or pro forma analysis or fiscal impact. There's a range of analysis I think the town would be wise to consider. The MHP grant funded consultant is really there to supplement the staff support to the Board of Appeals, to make sure that the Board of Appeals has a dedicated resource to help them manage the process, ensure that the hearing is conducted in accordance with regulation, and that they have the technical expertise to help them during what 180 days goes by pretty quickly with the number and complexity of some of the issues that need to be dealt with. So the hearing process needs to be managed very carefully, defining the issues early in the process so that they can get the attention that they deserve, and that the board doesn't run up against the clock at the end of that 180 days. So the consultant is really there as a resource to the Board of Appeals primarily.
Okay. Someone trying to ask a question?
I'll just say for anybody who's on the call, I don't have anybody muted. So if you're muted, you've muted yourself and you can unmute yourself, but I don't have anybody muted.
I would have a question just on one of those, any kind of letters or comments to Angus, due by. Is there a due date for public comments to be sent in?
What's the question? Is it too late?
No, due date.
When's the due date? Like
Due
when do we
date.
have to have those letters into you by?
So the town has until June 14th to provide comments to Mass Housing. We have asked that the comments get to my office and to the Board of Selectmen no later than the end of May, because the board's comments are going to intend to kind of touch on all of the topics, and then the board would append to its comments specific comments it receives. So if, for example, the planning board puts together comments, which we understand they're working toward, the Board of Selectmen may append those to their comment letter. So we want to make sure the board has enough time before that June 14th due date to basically digest anything that comes in. With that said, sooner is always better. That just gives the board, myself, and other staff working on this more time, but there's not really a hard deadline. We've also asked that departments and any boards, committees, commissions who intend to comment provide their comments more toward mid-May, again, with the intent to give my office and the Board of Selectmen's office enough time to digest all of that information that we expect is coming in. We've already received a lot of comments from the public, which I'll say again is very helpful because it helps us make, it's just more sets of eyes to make sure that we, we're all focused on the issues.
Thank you.
And caller 11, if you could just say your name so we have that for the minutes, the person who just spoke.
Yeah, that's Brian Ott.
Great, thanks.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this topic? Okay. We will move on, but please continue to send us your comments. They're not going, everything, it will help us.
And Archie, I think it's fair to say, I think we've said this before, but it's fair to say this topic will basically be a standing agenda item. Is that, for the next couple of meetings as we work toward that June 14th date. Is that a fair expectation? Yeah.
The next item, I'll just go over this briefly. I listened to a report on municipal cybersecurity. There was a few takeaways, some resources that we didn't know that were out there for the town. I guess I'll give you 2 or 3 takeaways from it. The town has to, and that would be the Board of Selectmen and our IT people. We have to own this issue. I mean, it's not something we can deal with after the fact. Towns do get ransom requests, and we're not too small to be a target. In fact, being small makes us perhaps more of a target because maybe we're not as well protected as a big municipality. So that's one thing to do, to be aware of. And we should have it's sometime in the next year develop an incident response plan. So what happens if this actually does happen to the town? It doesn't have to be extensive or whatever, but there are some people that we should be in contact with, so that when we call them, they will have actually talked to one of us on the phone before. So hopefully this never happens to us. It probably won't, but it's something. It's like anything else. Preparation is always good. And so I have a list of a few people, and some of these resources even from the federal government to help us be prepared for things are actually even free. So that's good to know. So that's all I'll say about it. But it's something, when things calm down a little bit next fall, we should think about preparing how to prepare a response and how to be involved, be in contact with a few of these people from organizations in the Commonwealth and in the federal government that can actually help us. So I'll leave it at that.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. Next item is just a real brief summary of how our revenue is doing versus prior years. I just asked this question because I was wondering if our receipts are down because of the economic impact of what's happened. Are our revenues down versus previous years?
Okay, I will go ahead and share screen on that. That'll probably make it a little clearer what I'm talking about. So I guess the short answer is not really. If you look at the year to date, and these numbers are as of April 21st, we were roughly 81% through the fiscal year. So the bottom line is we were only at 64% collections. And again, this is for non-property tax revenues. I'll speak to property tax revenues in a moment. But the motor vehicle excise is only at 45%, but not all of that is due. So just because it's not collected doesn't mean it's past due. Reviewing this with the town accountant, I don't think there's anything in terms of, revenue projections that are, particularly alarming. It's also important to note that we have been down, without a town accountant for a few weeks. And so there is a backlog on keying in some of the data. So the numbers, while I'm showing them as of April 21, because that's when I ran the report, our internal accounting isn't up to the minute because of some staff, some of the, COVID related issues. So on the, you have the full detail in your packet as well. And you can see, for instance, on real estate collections, and it's a little obscured on my screen. So let me move that over. We're at 70, just under 3/4 on real estate. That's where we would expect to be with the fourth quarter payments not yet due. So that's obviously the, huge share of our revenue is the property tax. And at least so far, we haven't seen any numbers to suggest that we're gonna, lag on collections. Realistically, I do, fully expect we'll have more people later than we would in a normal year. I'm hoping with the relief that the Commonwealth authorized and the board voted at its last meeting, and the extension of that due date by a month with no interest or penalties as long as it's paid by June 30th. We're hoping that will help people, make their payments, if not based on the original due date, but at least so that we can close out our fiscal year in good standing. So.
Good, thank you.
Angus, just one thing of clarification is it's the way the statute was written. The exemption for fees and interest means that it must be paid by June 29th, not June 30th. June 30th would be late.
Right. Before June 30th, right. That's right.
That's right. So
Oh,
so it's by June 29th. It has to be paid.
Yes.
what day is it? What day of the week is June 30th?
June 29th is a Monday.
Okay.
So
that's all.
let me just finish on this by saying,
Oh, okay.
I'll have Stephanie take a close look at what I've put together once she's got caught up with posting the revenues from the last period of time. And if there's anything different, I'll certainly put that on a future agenda. But I did talk with her by phone last week, and she was in agreement with how I was presenting things. So at this point, we're not seeing anything yet to suggest that we're going to have a real problem on revenues.
Okay. Our next item is basically, do we have any further news, Mike, about the car post or what's happening with that?
Yeah. What was it? Wayne has contracted with a asbestos removal company. We have a slight aspect of the tile in the car post. So he's contracted with a person, so they'll be on the site and they're going to be starting that right away.
Okay.
Is there is there a signed contract with the architect?
No, not yet. That's behind on that to get that done, but I'm working towards it.
Yeah. So what are they? I mean, are they moving forward, or where does that stand?
Yeah. We'll have to get a contract. So They have to,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. Say that.
I have to get a contract with them, so they're still waiting on me to get a contract.
Okay. When's that likely to happen?
But like everything else, it's, I get bits of it done and then things happen.
It's a crazy world.
I know.
One update that I can offer that I didn't have at the time we put this packet together, but I did connect earlier today with Hilltop Securities, who, as you know, advises us and helps us on financing, capital financing, and actually I'm going to want to put this on a future agenda to get some direction. But just in a nutshell, we are working with them on, keeping them apprised of the timeline. We had last winter, thought that we might be in a position by July, when the bond anticipation note for the water projects mature, to merge that into longer term debt combined with the soldiers and sailors. That's obviously not going to happen at this point, but so a decision is going to need to be made on whether to roll forward the water project ban for another year. And then, when we do get ready to issue debt for the soldiers and sailors, look at doing that sometime during the course of FY21, also as a ban, with the expectation that we would then roll the two together, more like July of 1. So I'll include that in the future packet, and we can talk about that in detail, but I just want to make you aware that we are attuned to the financing issues, and they are interrelated with the water capital. So there's some moving parts there. But I feel really good after, I talked to our financial people for about 40 minutes, and I think we're not behind. I mean, the project is behind, but in terms of the financing, we're not behind on getting done what we need to get done to make sure that both the water projects, and when the time comes, this project has the money.
It'll be kind of interesting to figure out, is it more propitious to us to do stuff now, you borrow money now? Some people think there's going to be like big inflation, but then other people think there is, and so it would be up in a year from now. But some people think that the federal government will keep interest rates extremely low to stimulate the economy. So it's a hard one to know what to do. We'll talk about that later.
Archie, if you knew what interest rates were going to be in 6 months, you wouldn't be doing your job. You'd be doing some other job on a beach somewhere very warm.
Oh, I do want to, there's something that's kind of, it's a fairly minor point, but this, in Wayne's email that I put into the packet, this question of the pool table. I don't know what the right course of action, but I thought, is that something that the board ought to declare surplus, which would allow for disposition of the pool table in accordance with town disposition policy? Because that's kind of that's a question that's got to get resolved.
I think it may have negative value.
It's clearly less than $1,000 of value.
Yes, it is. So I don't think they have to involve the Board of Selectmen on it at all.
Okay, good.
Might be more than 1,000 pounds.
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've called somebody in town that moves pool tables and is willing to move that.
Great. We'll get them in touch with Wayne.
Got to figure out whose garage to send it to. You're not going to get much money for that. It's in pretty serious shape, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to talk to Bob about that, because Bob James about that, because I think that was already donated to the veterans before the whole thing was sold. So
Oh, okay, so it's might be in question as to whether it's even town property, is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, and not the town's responsibility to move.
Okay,
I'll talk to Wayne about that.
great. Wayne's still here, anything you want to add on the asbestos, or? Wayne's
Me?
just gonna unmute, he's gonna unmute himself.
Okay.
I don't have anything to do about the asbestos.
Can you hear me? Oh, now, can you hear me now?
Nope.
I can hear you, Frank.
Okay. I would say the sooner we get the pool table out, the sooner I can start doing the asbestos. Right now it's in the way. Moving around, so.
It might have to go to Mello, so.
Yeah, I can't hear. Is Wayne talking?
No, he's done.
But he did say something, I couldn't really hear him, he's here.
Well, if you can hear me, Wayne, I'll call you. If you can hear me, Wayne, I'll call you in the morning.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, Wayne shows up in Angus's microphone right now.
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
all right, great, you guys will connect. Great. Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, future, anything people need to put on future agendas at the moment?
I have a topic that, sort of a long-term topic. And, in a sentence, it's that I think we as a town need to develop a climate action plan. The state's doing it, targeting the year 2050. Other communities, there's an increasing number of other communities that have actually, that are in the process of developing and adopting climate action plans. There's probably a dozen or so around the state at this point, but I've talked with a number of people in town who agree that we should try to address. It's not something you do immediately, and it may sound crazy on top of all the other issues we have going on. It's a long-term plan, 15 years at least. So, anyway, I'm just curious of people's thoughts.
Rick, is this something we can coordinate with the municipal vulnerability study?
I don't know if that would work because I think a climate action plan really becomes a living document that's going to change as the town changes.
Okay.
I don't see any problem with it, but we should actually get all of those plans and maybe prioritize them. Master plan, vulnerability plan, all these plans. But if they're not, like in the near future, maybe we, get through this hook over thing and then set up a real outline or timetable when you want this to be done. Probably not weeks or months, it might be years.
Yeah, well, the plan, you develop a plan in the relatively short term, and then it changes with reality as things change. But you don't wait 15 years before you do a plan. I mean, the problem is that in 2050 or so, if at our current rate, we're going to not be leaving anything for the next generations. So that's why you start to look at the issue now and figure out how you're going to deal with it and pick it apart a piece at a time.
Well, I would agree with that, but for you to say, hey, what do you think about that? On the face, that sounds great. But then we say, well, what kind of a commitment, what type of resources, what is it going to take to even get to that plan in a finished fashion? I want to know that before we start to tackle something. new at this point.
Okay.
I mean, I would say yes, Rick. I mean, it would be the most responsible thing to do, but we need to know what it's all about before we commit our staff and our.
And that. I guess a little, further along the thought, and this doesn't answer your question, Glenn, which is a good, that's a basic question about the whole idea. But in my opinion, this is something an article at some point would go to town meeting, directing the town to not this town meeting, obviously, directing the town to develop a climate action plan. And what has been successful in other communities and is, I think, beginning to move things along, is that it starts as a citizen's petition and ideally is then supported by the Board of Selectmen. Again, as a selectman, that may sound funny for me to say that, but it seems to me that it's a start from it needs to start from the bottom up as opposed to the top down if you want people to actually begin to adapt to to shoot for a zero carbon future.
Okay. So are you going to lead that?
I'd be happy to.
I mean, in my thing, I'd start tomorrow as long as it doesn't take any town resources to start the citizens petition, and then it gets brought forward to the selectmen and put to an article and hopefully funded enough that it would be supported by that article and not have to have any, town resources or personnel at this point, because I think we have a lot of stuff that already is on the back burner that we want to get to.
Yeah, we certainly do.
Bring it to fall town meeting or next spring town meeting.
Yeah, we need to figure out how to do it with available resources.
But I thought you said it was a citizens petition. It was done by the citizens and brought to the selectmen for an article.
I couldn't understand that.
I thought you said it was done by the citizens and then brought to the selectmen for an article.
Well, in my understanding, at least I'll use Westboro as an example, is that there was a citizens petition. It's a good question. I don't know if the selectmen, sponsored the article or not, or if it went through as a citizens petition without anybody else's sponsorship. But it was supported by the selectmen.
Any details about what does this entail? I just need to know.
Well, so essentially, the end goal that's being pursued is to get to from a community level or a state level. I guess I won't go beyond that right now, but is to get to a essentially net carbon or net zero carbon point. And, some, depending upon what organization it is, they might say 2035, or they might say 2050, or somewhere in between, or some other number. So you have to do this in a lot of steps. And the first step is basically committing to do it. And that's what this is about, is committing to do it. And to generate to then begin to generate a plan as to how you're going to get to net zero. Essentially, the first step is just making the commitment, saying you're going to do it. And then you got to figure out how you're going to do it. But there's a certain amount of power in just committing to do it.
Correct. So I don't have, you know, this is something certainly, yeah, worth pursuing. It seems daunting to a small community to, as I'm going to say it again, to reinvent the wheel. Why can't we, if this is something that we should be committed to, then why can't we copy what someone else has already done?
I agree with you that we do that as much as we can, Archie. Yeah, we don't want to be inventing what we don't have to invent. But you know, going back to what I said a minute ago, the first thing is we need to say we're going to do this. We need to make the commitment.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's hard. Okay.
I
What was
didn't
that
catch. I'm not hearing Glenn.
No, I'm almost done.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's flesh it out at future meetings.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Flush it out.
Yeah.
Flush it out, Rick, and
My
then
best
let's.
now. I'm getting a little tired. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think
Yeah,
all
me
are.
too. But definitely flush it out, and then it's hard to say. I think conceptually, of course, we all want that, but let's see what it takes at this point to get through to that.
First, to get through site plan review and the electric vehicle charging stations. That's the first step of a long journey, so.
Oh, right.
That's right.
A motion to adjourn the open session.
Make a motion to adjourn the open session and go to executive session again. Are we going to do this, gentlemen, or what? Anybody else on the line?
10 minutes.
4 other calls, or actually Jenny's, yeah, so there are 4 other people on the line. And plus Jenny, who would need to stay with us.
I mean, given the lateness of the hour, why don't I send something out to each of you, and then I can work with Archie on whether we need to convene. If we do, we can put together a remote meeting.
Sounds good. Make a motion to adjourn. Good meeting, gentlemen and ladies. Hi, Jenny.
A little tired there at the end.